Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Gods and Myths of Northern Europe, Part 14. So, today we will be reading the worship of the war god. So let's get into it. We have seen that the power of the war god was considerable in Northern Europe from very early times. From the period when Tews was regarded as the lord of hosts among the heathen Germans, and also the promoter of justice and order among men. When in the 1st century after Christ, the Hermundari and the Chatti are said to have sacrificed to Tews and Woden, this may be significant. Woden, lord of the kingdom of death, and ancestor of the German kings, may have even had been challenging the supremacy of Tews on the battlefield. Later in the heathen period, Woden is seen as the bearer of the spear and the god of the wolf and raven, and he was accepted by certain tribes, at least, as the deity of battle. In Sweden, he was known as Odin, the leader of the gods, the deity with power to bind and to loose, whose followers were the terrible choosers of the slain, who could strike down men in the conflict or render them helpless to avert death. In this, Odin follows in the footsteps of Odin, the best interpretation of whose name seems to be one who makes mad. Adam of Bremen in the 11th century sums up this power of the god briefly and decisively. Woden id est Führer. We shall see in the later chapter that Odin was also the god of the dead and supreme practitioner in magic, with the ability to inspire his followers and grant them the ecstatic, trance-like state of intoxication, the ecstasy of battle, which inspired the berserks and filled them with such madness that they knew neither fear nor pain, was naturally viewed as a gift of the same god. In his warrior paradise Valhalla, men were said to divide their time between battle and drinking. These were two means by which they could, while on earth, achieve forgetfulness of self. It is therefore fitting that they should be the only occupations in Odin's hall. We must remember the battle for the Germanic peoples and the Vikings was a very individual affair. The picture of it, which emerges from the comments of the Greek and Latin historians, and again from the poetry and sagas of the people themselves, is principally one of the single combat between sword warriors, or of a hand-to-hand struggle between two small bands of men. Under such conditions, faith in Woden or Odin, who could give supreme confidence in the strength of fury of possession, was an inviolable gift. It was a psychological asset, likely to bring luck and victory along with it. Nevertheless, men knew that the berserk, freed though he might be for a time from fear and pain, was not inevitably a victor. He might be cut down in battle for all his strength and furious courage, awake from his frenzy to find himself crippled for life. The vows made at the ale-drinking to accomplish wild and daring deeds could bring bitter regrets when the men, wild and daring, when the men who made them were sober again. As we are reminded more than once in the heroic literature of the North, thus it is hardly surprising that Odin was remembered as the arch-deceiver, as well as the god of inspiration. Throughout the heathen period in Northern Europe, there is a clear need of a god of war. The story of the Germanic peoples and the Vikings is one in which local battles, feuds, invasions, and wars on a national scale are the order of the day. The heroic literature is based on an unsettled society, accustomed to violence and shortness of life. Differences between men were settled for the most part by force of arms, and the natural hero was the warrior chief with his little band of faithful followers, ready to take chances, to trust to their luck with spear and sword, and to risk losing all that they have gained if the fight went against them. Lands, homes, and wives had often to be won by the sword, and always to be defended by it. The leader established his sway over his followers by handing out weapons and armor to be used in his defense, and by the winning of riches in battle. Clearly men reared in such a world were bound to turn turn to the god whom they serve to protect them in the hour of battle, and to grant them the elusive gift of victory, which depended on the spirit of a fighting force, a mysterious, impalpable thing, or sometimes on some similar chance outside men's control. In the earlier days of Germanic heathenism, the terrible wholesale slaughter of captured forces and criminals implies a belief in the god of battle, who demanded that blood should flow in his honor. Blood had to be constantly provided for the mighty deity, or else he would be compelled by his nature to seize on the lives of his worshippers. Pictures of priestesses putting men to a brutal death in his name are reflected in later pictures of the terrible Valkyries of the north, reveling in blood and stirring up battle. Not only must the blood of his be set flowing, but the panoply of war, swords and mailcoats, shields and spears, must be offered to the god of war, cast into the swamps or the lakes, or burned at the pyre in his honor. As time went on, the emphasis seems to change from that of a supreme ruler holding in his hand victory over defeat, who taught men the value of law and order among themselves, to that of a more capricious power who bestowed madness on his followers, and who meted out victory over defeat with the arrogance of an earthly tyrant. It is possible that we are led to exaggerate this distinction from the fragmentary evidence left to us, and that Tews also has a strong element of this capricious in his nature. Certainly the madness associated with Woden and Odin, of whom know much more, was such as was held to bring dazzling gifts along with it, at the same time to exact fearful penalties. It would not seem as though Odin was a god whom men could love or respect, although they feared him, and gloried at times in his heady power, but the picture of Odin as the god of battle is an incomplete one. It needs to be finished in the chapter on the gods of the dead. Okay, so that was it. Next Friday we'll be going over Chapter 3, the Thunder God, so we'll be going over Thor. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to follow me on my social media, links are in the description. If you want to see more videos, subscribe if you want. Comment, like, it helps. See you in the next video.